It's the Elsa Kurt Show with Clay Novak. Conservative views on world news. Brought to you by The Wellness Company. Prepare for the unexpected. And Refuge Medical. And now, it's time for the show.
Well, hello, everybody. Again, it's us. We're back for another week of fun. We have fun. I don't know if the topics are fun, but we have fun discussing them, right, Clay?
Yeah, and again, the world never fails us. There's plenty to discuss, and especially today, some great news breaking early today, and we're going to talk all about it right after this.
Oh, right off the bat. Kamala. My goodness gracious. What the heck? There's so much. So much. And of course, the number one, the top of the list in all of this is her VP pick. I'm stunned. Tim Walz.
Yeah. So last night, middle of the night, they, confirmed her as the candidate. In a middle of the night, very skull and bones, secret fraternity kind of thing.
Not shady at all.
No.
Nah.
She's never won an election. She's never won a primary, but hey, we'll make her the presidential candidate anyway. Yep. And then she comes out this morning.
Yep.
And keep in mind, and we've been saying this for months, this is all about Ohio. They had to get this done today so that the state of Ohio could put them on the ballot. So
right.
She picked her vice presidential candidate, someone who
somebody picked her.
Well, somebody picked her. Truthfully, until 2 weeks ago, I don't think anybody was talking about.
No, that name. I don't remember that name coming up. I mean, maybe it did, and it wasn't even a blip. I mean, obviously, Josh Shapiro was the biggest name being thrown out there, with almost an air of definitiveness, and then of course, reality set in, and they can't have him because why? Well, he's Jewish, and we can't.
And this occurred to me this morning. So he is, as many Jews do. He went and volunteered his time and did service in the Israeli Defense Force, right? In defense of Israel.
Right.
There's an article that he wrote a number of years ago as a volunteer in the IDF, talking very bad about the Palestinians. But I don't know, in all of this constitutional legality that we've been messing around with in this crazy election, is, he served in the IDF. So has he sworn off allegiance to Israel?
Right.
Because you have to, right?
So,
he has in the past sworn allegiance to another nation as a volunteer in the IDF. So I don't know if that disqualified him, or if they just realized he's Jewish, like just this week, realized he's Jewish, and they've got some blatant anti-Semites in the party.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, one of them from the great state of Minnesota.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah. So he and his potential ended, in the last couple of days, and then they turn around and they announce in his state, by the way, in the state of Pennsylvania, where Shapiro is the governor, they announced that it is not him to be the vice presidential candidate.
And he did some backbending to try and, I think he did some severe political damage to his reputation and in his career, because, he's trying to bend to their terminology and liking and everything. And it's not even that it backfired. It just simply didn't work, didn't help him, didn't get him the nomination. And, now he looks like a real tool, and he's got to be stinging. He's got to be stinging real bad right now.
And if you remember Doug Mastriano, who was a state representative or state senator in the state of Pennsylvania, and then ran for Congress against Dr. Oz.
That's right. Yeah,
that was Doug Mastriano, who's a retired Army officer, who has stayed very active in the GOP in the state since then. Launched on Shapiro today in just saying all the things that you just said, which is he sold his soul. You know, he wobbled, he bent in any way possible.
Yeah.
And now, he's done potentially irreparable damage to himself, and will probably end up losing the state in the next election anyway.
Yeah. I think that's I think that might be a given. We'll see. I mean, anything can happen, certainly, but this definitely left mark. That's going to hurt.
Not so much here or here.
Right.
If you're a fan of Tommy Boy. But right here.
Love Tommy Boy.
Yeah.
I love Tommy. So I'm segueing just for 1 second because you said Tommy Boy, and it's one of my all-time favorites. I cannot begin to tell you how many times in my life I start singing randomly, "Fat Guy in a Little
Coat." Yeah. I actually watched that movie last night.
Did you really? I may have to watch it. It's a classic. I'm sorry if you think our taste in movies is dumb. We don't care.
Chris Farley is a tragic loss and a national treasure.
I'm telling you, that guy was a comedic genius. I think he had a certain skill set, and he absolutely knew how to work it. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to.
Back on topic. We're
back on topic. We're back at it. So back to Walz. So this guy, wow. I mean, what if I didn't know better? And I'm not saying that I do know better, but if I didn't know better, I would say they're like deliberately sabotaging her, because like you couldn't possibly have picked a worse running mate. This guy is awful. He is going to put off a very large portion, I would think, a very large portion of their voter demographic. This guy is a openly radical socialist.
Yeah.
Right? He makes Bernie Sanders look, I don't know, like a libertarian. I don't know. It's so crazy to me that they would pick this guy. So as soon as I heard this, I of course had to go and quickly gather everything I could in short order about this guy, which the internet always internets for us and always does its job and makes my life easier. And so there was so much material so quickly about this guy. And so I put together this video really quickly. I got to make sure I have the right one here. Okay, so here's this, and then we'll discuss it in a little more detail. If you haven't heard the news yet, Kamala Harris has chosen Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, as her running mate. This is phenomenal news for the right, because she couldn't have chosen a worse running mate than this guy. I mean, I suppose she could have, but this one's pretty bad. If you don't know anything about him, here's a quick little recap of what he's all about.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
Front of this building is on fire.
We're waking up this morning to devastation in Minneapolis.
It's done.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute. There, that's bad. He talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory.
This should be fun. So yes, I'm well aware, guys, that the graphics, the photos went by very, very quickly at the end. There was a little method to my madness. I was a little concerned. I am a little concerned that the social media platforms, if they get too much wind of what I'm posting, yes. So they may give me a little hand smack. You hear an echo? I'm echoing on my end. You don't hear it? All right, as long as you guys don't hear it, we're good. I can get through it. It just happens randomly. But anyhow, so we'll kind of slow this down and go through it, and I'll read you a few things here, and we can discuss as we go along. So as we said, he's a radically open progressive socialist who's best known for allowing and encouraging the riots in 2020 that destroyed Minneapolis. The Fall of Minneapolis is a documentary. It's on YouTube. It's free for everyone to watch. Highly recommend it. I have not seen it yet. I'm recommending it on the basis of other recommendations that it's going to give you a really very, very clear picture of exactly who Tim Walz is and what he's done to his own state, basically. So he passed a law, some of the things that were in this video, passed a law allowing illegal aliens to obtain driver's licenses. He supports the most lenient abortion laws, and some of those graphics, images or text that went by very quickly on there. It's pretty awful. It's pretty horrifying what he's, not only okay with, but advocating for and allowing. So and here's a big one for you, Clay. He's being accused of stolen valor for lying about his service.
So I did some research today, as I tend to do on stuff like this, because he is a former service member, and here's what I found out. And this speaks to, one, his character, and two, his leadership. And in both cases, it's actually a lack of character and a lack of leadership. So the short version, without getting into too much detail, and so for you veterans out there, you'll understand this if you dig into it, and I'll try and keep it simple for those who aren't familiar with all this. So post 9/11, he re-enlisted in the Minnesota National Guard and was brought back in at a fairly high enlisted rank, and then was given an opportunity to further his professional military education. And when you do that, you take on an additional service obligation. So by the military training you and providing you an education, you owe them more time, right? So he's acknowledged all of this, started the process, started the education. His unit, which was he was deployed to Italy to augment service or security operations in Europe post 9/11, and then was brought back home to Minnesota and was put into a significant leadership position, senior enlisted personnel individual in his unit. So in an organization of somewhere between 500 to 700 people, he's the senior enlisted guy there, right? Massive responsibility, big deal. Okay. This is also part of his, additional service obligation. So by assuming that role, he took a promotion. He incurred an additional 2 years of service, and then turned around and said, this is awesome. I appreciate this so much. Very shortly afterwards, the unit was told they were being mobilized to go to Iraq. He promptly, as the senior enlisted, the command sergeant major in his organization, said, hey guys, I'm out. I'm not going. You guys, take care of yourselves. I'm going to go run for Congress. And he bailed. So as the senior enlisted guy in an organization that large, quit, walked out, self-serving. He could easily have continued to serve and run for Congress. Right. Could have been done. Yep. Not, there are a number of congressmen who continue to serve in the reserves National Guard, but he decided to bail and he left when his unit needed him most, because they were getting ready to do combat.
Right.
So as a result of that, because he didn't fulfill his obligation, because he didn't serve out the time that he acknowledged he needed to do, he was reduced back in rank. So he was taken from an E9 command sergeant major back down to a master sergeant E8. So while he did serve at that rank, and he did, for a very brief period of time, perform the duties of that rank, he didn't retire or end his service at that rank. So there's a lot of skepticism about his, his qualifications as far as what he puts on his resume as for his military service. But really, more than anything, it speaks to his lack of character and his lack of leadership. When his unit needed him because they were going to combat, he's peace out, and he rolled on him. He left. He quit what he did. So, my opinion as a veteran, of the entire global war on terror, years and all the tours that I went on, this guy is a piece of. I have no problem saying that. He was a vice presidential candidate. He's governor of Minnesota. The guy's a piece of trash. Period. No questions asked.
And all of this, everything is, as we've talked about many times, the internet never fails to internet for us, and people on the internet are spectacular. So none of this can be scrubbed fast enough by them for us not to know about it, not to see it. Obviously we have all of the videos, all of his statements within hours. It's all out there. And, you can't tell me that they're not smart enough to know that this would happen, that this would be the case. Like, what is the strategy behind this? To pick a guy with such a colorful. Right?
He's a DUI. So this, to me, the biggest thing about this is that it's a statement about her decision-making. If she allowed this, or if she didn't allow it and it was forced on her, whoever is the strategist behind all of this is terrible. Like, they did not do their homework. They did not do due diligence, or they assumed the American public is so stupid and so non-caring that they just would put this guy in and they would just walk away. But this is the most liberal ticket ever. Like, this is so left it's not even funny.
Right.
It's left to the point of being dangerous.
Yeah, it's actually kind of scary to me because it's, there are only two possibilities here. One is that they're so stupid, and two is that they're so confident of what they have up their sleeve. And I think everyone should be very concerned because we already know that they're not stupid. We know that they're not. We know they're manipulative. We know they're evil. We know they're devious. We know all of these things. Stupid is not on that list. Even when they do seemingly very stupid things, it's very calculated. The socialist agenda, the Marxist agenda is really what's at hand here. And, so maybe it's simply a matter of their incredibly high level of confidence in their following, in their supporters. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know because it's all baffling. I feel like most of us are in the same boat of feeling very baffled as to what the strategy here is. What's your plan?
So I'll offer this, and I'll offer this as a little bit of a counter and off the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Is one, they painted themselves into a corner. We've said that before. They had no choice. They had to let her run.
Right.
No other option.
Right.
The party doesn't want it. They've never her failings as vice president were so blatant. The party knew they made a mistake very, very early on.
Mm-hmm.
So the intent was never to let her be the president. So maybe this is, they saw her, President Biden steps back. She assumes they have to let her run. And then all of a sudden there's a popularity spike.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, right?
Yes.
There's a spike. And the party itself went, we can't let her run. We can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I almost wonder if they forced this guy on her as
mm-hmm.
a vice presidential candidate to tank it.
Right.
And just and wait out 4 years of President Trump, attack him, do all the things that they're going to do. And again, we've said this before, concentrate on the down tickets, concentrate on not losing Congress,
mm-hmm.
And really tank this so bad. This is
right.
This is like those professional sports teams that like midway through the season, they're like, we're not going to win. So let's get a really good draft pick. And they just tank the rest of the season. So almost setting themselves up for 2028.
Sure.
Instead of having to deal with her in 2028.
Right. I could see that easily as being a possibility because, another thing we've talked about many times in the past is that, the Democrats, the liberals specifically, have always been good at playing the long game. And boy, oh boy, would that be a long game play, right? To like say, okay, listen, we screwed up here. A little bit of a glitch in the machinery. Let's just regroup. Let's just start fresh and, start planning for the next round. And, and of course, when Trump gets in, they'll be doing all of their shenanigans to get him out, to disqualify him. There's what's his name? Jamie Rats? No, maybe I just think he's like a rat. He reminds me of a rat. So I'm drawing a blank on his name. I know the first name's Jamie, but he's getting some airtime now because he's pretty much coming right out and saying, we're gonna use this section of the 14th Amendment to disqualify him, blah blah blah. And, exactly. I mean, certainly would hope he won't get any traction, but he'll make enough waves. Like he'll get enough people. He's got Swalwell with him, and he threw a couple other names out there. The absolute, bottom of the barrel people to try and help move this along. So they're obviously going to work all their shenanigans. But there's a strong potential that you're very right on this. That they may just look at this and go, we're just going to have to eat this one and move on, because this guy, I mean, again, everything that is on his list is it's bad. It is so bad. All of it is incredibly bad. So,
I mean, he's the gender affirming care for forced, right?
Yes.
Parents didn't
Yes.
even have an option to deny essentially sex change operations for their own children.
Right.
You denied that for your child. The state had the potential to take the child from you.
Yes.
He supports that. He supports and put feminine hygiene products in boys' bathrooms.
Yes.
He did, in the wake of George Floyd, he let that place burn.
Yep.
And his family's weird too, which, seems to also be a theme in the Democratic Party. His wife has said that during the riots, she opened the windows so she could smell the burning tires in the burning city to be in the moment. His daughter also leaked the National Guard deployment plans,
right?
so that rioters and looters could know where they could go and how long they could continue to burn before the guard was going to show up. So there's a lot of things wrong with not just Walz, but his family, with everything that surrounds him.
Right.
I can't, like you said, I can't believe that they put these two together. I mean, we all know that she's crazy San Francisco, like way left coast,
right,
baddie.
Yep.
You would think, and we said old white guy. We did say old white guy on the ticket.
White guy.
Not this one though. Like this guy is the worst old white guy they could have picked.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. And that's got to anger a whole nother part of their voting demographic. You have all of these other choices, other people of color who were very well qualified for the job, all overlooked for an old white guy. You're going to tell me that doesn't tick off a bunch of people in that party?
Yeah, and an old straight white guy who, truthfully, is a socialist.
Right.
Like I don't. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The guy that I'll be very interested in listening to over the next few days is James Carville, because he will be the one who says this was a stupid idea.
Yeah.
And he will call out his own party, because he is at that point and has been for about a year now, maybe two, where he is just he's not cutting them any corners. And when they, when the Democratic Party, who he's so very loyal to, when they do something stupid, as him being the former strategist, he calls them out on it. And this is one I'm going to pay attention to, because I'm sure his input on this, or his feedback on this, is going to be glorious.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And the Kamala antics it's been a really bad time for her. Number one trending hashtag on X, it may have been, knocked off the number one spot, but was Kamala Crash. That is Kamala Crash. They are pinning the stock market crash. They're pinning it all squarely on her shoulders. And listen, she wanted to be the big dog. Well, you got to take the responsibilities of the big dog then, don't you? And
but they haven't been. I mean, President Biden has been in, back in his basement, in the, since all this started,
right?
Or since he announced stepping back. She hasn't had a press conference until today. What was it, 15 days?
Yeah, I think 16 days. Did she have one today? I have to.
Well, in the announcement of her candidate. I mean,
okay, yeah. So no addressing reporters, no addressing the press, nothing, except for her little impromptu statement that she made at the airport there on the tarmac, when she said, and I'm not gonna read it like Kamala, because I've already made the video for you guys. You'll see it, but I'm just gonna read to you what her unscripted impromptu response to reporters. And she said, hang on, my little scrolly's not doing the scrolly. This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy. Real statement. Now, the only thing that saved her, yes, exactly. Big old circle. And I want to point out something about that in just a moment, that somebody way smarter than me pointed out, someone's actually, in 1 second, but I just want to finish that whole scene, if you will picture it, of the only thing that saved her from talking anymore or anything was the fact that about less than a minute later, Joe Biden wandered off and boarded a plane that was not theirs. It was the plane. It's so shocking, and it's such a painfully long video of, she makes her absurd statement, they turn around and walk away, and they're walking together, and Joe starts going Nobody stops the man. Nobody says, Joe, over here.
They don't care.
Nobody stopped him.
They don't
He
care.
boards this plane. Yeah, they don't care. They're like, whatever, who cares? Let that old man go. They don't care anymore. Like, they have literally just erased him from existence. He's just a cardboard, puppet that they bring out and say, stand here, Joe, and don't move, and then they forget to tell him it's time to move this way, Joe. So bad. But back to her, we call them the word salads. That's our favorite thing to call them, word salads, because that's what they are. You just toss a bunch of words together, and several somebodies, and I can't give you names at the moment because I'm just drawing a blank, pointed out that don't be deceived by these word salads, that they're just these insane utterances by adults, which they are to a large degree. But this is, the premise of the conversation was, this is a very Marxist strategy to say what sounds like a whole bunch of nothing, use big words, make it sound important, use those hand gestures. It's a very orchestrated strategy that they do. And it's the whole, we attribute that skill to politicians all the time. Say a bunch of nothing, but make it sound like something. And, that is really something to watch for. And I think Glenn Beck was one of the people I was watching, and he was talking about, the whole be unburdened by what has been, blah, 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 that whole thing. And he said, that's a classic example of it. Like, what unburdened by what? Like, what are we being unburdened from? Like our history? Are we supposed to ignore our history? It's really, I recommend going to look for it, because he obviously articulates that whole thing way better than I just did. But all very interesting things to watch. It is the problem, Clay. I get so much information, getting thrown at me. You know how it is. There's so many things coming at you at once. It's like, listen, I only got enough space for a certain amount of stuff here, guys.
Well, listen, we don't remember phone numbers anymore because they're stored in our phone. So at least
Right.
we don't have that burden anymore. So we've been
Thank goodness.
We've been
couldn't even.
from phone numbers.
Yeah. But back to, I strayed because, there's so much. Back to the Kamala crash. So here's a couple of things. One, I'm gonna torture you all with one of my reenactments. This is, and it's only actually because I didn't take the time to go find the original. This is verbatim what Kamala Harris answered, her response to how are you going to fix the problem of inflation. And this is her response, obviously me doing it, but word for word.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up, and families and individuals who are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more and gas costs more, and we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up. That's about having to stress and stretch limited resources. That's about a source of stress for families that is not only economic, but is on a daily level, something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously, very seriously. And we know from the history of this issue in the United States that when you see these prices go up, it has a direct impact on the quality of life. That's a big issue, and we take it seriously, and it is a priority, therefore.
Word for word. And exactly.
Well, they take it seriously.
They take it seriously. They take it seriously. I mean, I feel like that's answer enough, isn't it? Now here's one. So obviously that was, parody of me, again, word for word of what she actually said. I want to make sure everybody understands that it was exactly what she said. This one could be parody, but this might be, but it's real. This maybe better explains why we're in such trouble right now. You ready for this guy? Here we go.
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Since they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to, yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, cause it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
Chairman of the Economic Advisors Committee to the president. That guy doesn't know, doesn't understand. The guy's an idiot. like that guy doesn't understand jack. I'm not an economist, but I know more than that guy does.
Right? I mean, that's basically the answer I would give.
Oh.
And y'all don't want me answering those kind of questions because that's what I would sound like. That guy shouldn't sound like that. FYI. So, yeah, that's what we're dealing with. That's what's making major significant decisions from our government.
That's where Bidenomics came from. That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
that guy. So, I mean, I hope the Trump campaign uses that video for their advertisements, for their ads, because the stuff writes itself. Nobody, including myself, has to write any scripts anymore. We just sit.
Like
and,
President Trump. Do you listen to President Trump, who's been a businessman for 50 years and has made billions of dollars? Or you listen to that moron on economic policy? Yeah, I don't think so. But listen, we're not alone. We're not alone. Right?
We are far from alone.
So our hemisphere, we've got our own. We've got other problems outside the United States.
Yes.
And you know, for those who look south and they look at Venezuela and they say, "Who cares? It's Venezuela. Why should that matter to us?" So obviously, for those of you that aren't tracking, President Maduro was reelected with 50-point-something% of the vote in a completely rigged election. 100%. The election was stolen. You know, he's already had political opposition's already been arrested in the wake of it. This is dictatorship to a T.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right.
Wait a minute. Wait, did you just say a president having a political opponent arrested and imprisoned? Oh, okay. It just
after
sounded
stealing an election.
Oh yeah, it just sounded so familiar. I'm like, where have I heard that before?
Yeah.
That's weird, but there can't be any parallels here, right?
No. Did I mention he's a socialist too?
What?
Right. I know. Crazy. Right. The parallels
must be just a coincidence, right, Clay?
Yeah. Just crazy. So, you know, you've got, this is so bad and so blatant that you actually have, you know, the president of Argentina is backing political opposition to President Maduro. So you've got another nation actively getting involved in the aftermath of this. But really, Venezuela is important economically because of their oil. Right. Venezuela is the largest producer outside the United States in the Western Hemisphere. Massive oil stocks. They're also have been in cahoots with, you know, Russia and China and other nations to provide them oil, et cetera, et cetera. So not so far away from us, but this is a prime example. This is a prime example of what happens when and I know people, you know, that a lot of folks on the left are going to turn around and say, well, that's what's going to happen if Trump gets elected. This is what you're going to get out of him, which it's not. You know, it's not. You're not. Oh, what about January 6th? Okay, it's all manufactured. Like, stop listening to the box on the wall. That's, you know, it's what the media is telling you. But this is a real-time example of how bad things can get and how very quickly they can go wrong.
Incredibly quickly. The timeline, do you happen to know at the time? I know that it's like terrifying to think about, like the timeline of the fall essentially into
it's under 20 years from Venezuela being one of the richest nations per capita, like just average you know, family value, family wealth, to where they're at now, where the dollar, the Venezuelan currency, is basically worthless. And you know, it's not an exaggeration where, you know, lighting $100 bill to light your cigarette is really what is going on down there, because their money is like, you know, milk is like $300 a gallon.
Wow.
Now that's because the $300 isn't worth anything.
Right.
But that's for those of you who don't understand economics and inflation and an inflated dollar.
Like the economics chair guy, you could explain it to him maybe.
Yeah, like when you flood the market with free cash, like, I don't know, COVID checks or you know, things like that, it devalues your currency, which is what's happening and has been happening in Venezuela. But this is a, you know, a model that we all need to pay attention to. Truthfully. Because the
left is paying attention to it.
Yeah, this is the playbook. This is what they're watching, right? And they're only a few years in front of us. And really, we may be catching up to the point where they may only be a few months in front of us. So keep paying attention to the aftermath of that. I am encouraged by the fact that you've got like this new kind of harder line president down in Argentina who's stepping in and saying, nope, you know, this is we're not supporting this on this continent, and he's getting involved. I think you're going to see a little bit more of that, which is good. Yeah. So but don't lose sight of the aftermath of this one, folks, because it is the crystal ball of what could potentially happen here in the United States.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And anybody that doesn't believe it needs to go and research and learn the history of Venezuela and how exactly that happened. And I suspect you're going to see a lot of parallels.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing and frightening. And people should be, I don't know if scared is the right word. I think simply educated and prepared and, basically ready to fight because,
I think Venezuela itself.
Physically.
No, but Venezuela itself, that election is not going to have a huge impact on the United States. But again, it is an indicator of, it's a history lesson ahead of us, right? This is a little bit of prophetizing of what could potentially happen. So we can't lose sight of that. But at the same time, we've got enough other problems going on, right? So we got
plenty.
Dropping back into the Israel, earlier this weekend, for those of you that weren't tracking, Israel, I think they've claimed one. I don't think they've claimed both, but I think they're responsible for both. So they killed two, a Hezbollah commander and a Hamas commander. The Hezbollah commander, I think they killed in Syria. The Hamas commander, they killed in Tehran. And there's a lot of people that think that was coordinated, doing them both at the same night or within 24 hours of each other. And I can tell you definitively that operations like that are based on intelligence and opportunity. So the fact that these two idiots stuck their head out within 24 hours of each other, like the guy from Hamas has been living in Qatar, protected in a protected status in Qatar for months, since before October 7th, right? So he has not left that because there's an agreement there of some sort. I don't know why, but he's under protected status in Qatar and decided to go to Tehran for the inauguration of the new Iranian president. And he met with the new Iranian president, and then he met with the Ayatollah the day before the inauguration, and he went back to a guest house, a government-owned guest house. And while he was there, there was an airstrike from a drone, and they blew him up. But that was the first time that he left Qatar in months. So the Israelis,
what was he thinking?
Right, and that's a good question. But the Israelis took advantage of that. The Hezbollah commander in Syria, same thing, stuck his head out, and they took advantage of it. It just happened to be within 24 hours of each other. But now you've got Iran is in an uproar, and they're saying, they're going to retaliate, full attacks. They were not going to stand for this. It's the same saber rattling kind of crap that we heard months ago when they launched whatever it was, 100 drones and all these ballistic missiles and all this other stuff at Israel, which was a colossal failure. So, the concern is that you're going to get a repeat of this, and caught in the middle are a bunch of Americans who are in Iraq right now, who were attacked, rocket attack the other night. But they're going to play a role in this, just like we did last time. Our air defenses and some, assets that we have in Iraq intercepted a bunch of those drones between Iran and Israel the last time this happened. But you've got an escalation in the region. The Israelis are not apologizing, nor should they. They did step in it a little bit in the sense that they poked their nose inside of Iran, which they've done in the past, but this one is fairly significant. So we'll see what happens with a brand new Iranian president. Right. So this is a guy who's gonna, he's gonna, want to respond. Otherwise, he's gonna be, they're gonna, lose faith in him immediately if he doesn't respond somehow.
Do we know anything? Do we know anything about? No.
It's the reality
is that, obviously.
The reality is in Iran, everybody takes orders from the Ayatollah. So, it's they have an elected president, but whoever the elected president is always answers to the Ayatollah, so it doesn't matter. So, I mean, you've got this, and why does this matter? Because we haven't heard jack from the White House, either the outgoing president who's not doing jack, or the running vice president who's not doing jack. I think this is where your diplomacy quote comes from. I mean, they called the two of them into the Situation Room, whatever it was, Saturday morning or Sunday morning, to talk about this, and nothing, literally nothing from. No,
they're like, the two of them are like the scarecrow, you know, just pointing their finger in each other's direction. Like,
Yep.
he's got to take care of it. No, she's got to take care of it. Nobody's handling anything, obviously.
And again, this is poor diplomacy. The
Yeah.
U.S. is not stepping up. And I'm not saying
Right.
stick our nose in the middle of it. I'm not talking, although there has been discussions of increase of U.S. forces in the Middle East, which I'm sure will be used as a deterrent of sorts, you know. But we're not getting involved as we
Right.
should, right, to help stabilize the region, because President Biden has tried to play both ends. He doesn't want to piss anybody off, so he's trying to help the Israelis, but he's also trying to help the Palestinians at the same time. And he's denouncing both, and he's supporting both, and you know, basically indecisive because he doesn't know what planet he's on. And you know, and so we're not doing anything. We the leaders of the globe have done jack. Like
nothing.
It's reprehensible.
Yeah. Oh, it's so shocking. Like, there's literally nobody at the helm of this ship. There's no one whatsoever. It's so bizarre. And, you know, and it continues into this also bit of bizarreness. Now, it's only bizarre in the sense that Biden supposedly had no idea, like had no knowledge. Was this what's going on? Oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. Just washed his hands of it, just like he's, you know, washed his hands of everything that's going on. And this is so crazy.
So I'm gonna be a little careful about this.
Okay.
So retired Brigadier General Susan Escalier, who is the one who offered this plea deal.
Okay.
I knew many years ago. Knew what we were captains together, same unit. I've known her since, you know, I haven't had contact with her in a very long time, but I've tracked her career through friends. I've been aware of where she's been and what she's been doing, both personally and professionally. So I've known Susan since 99, 2000, right? Long time. But I will say this: these are lawyers.
Right.
She is a retired Army lawyer who reached the rank of Brigadier General and was in contention to be the Judge Advocate General for the United States Army. Okay. Like the senior lawyer for the Army. Okay?
Wow.
She knows what she's doing.
Right.
I'm going to tread very, very lightly here. So she is the one who has been in charge of this, the prosecution for this for a while. In fact, she retained that responsibility even as she retired.
Well,
okay. So they didn't want to pull her off of it when she retired. But my understanding, and I qualify that. My understanding is that she offered this with not the proper level of authorization.
Okay. So that's actually the opposite of what I would have assumed, honestly. Like, I would imagine, like, my thinking was, there's no way in heck that she was not being given green lights. Like, here's how I interpreted that. And, you know, based on what you're saying, I'm wrong. I'm okay to be wrong, or with being wrong. I kind of thought, okay, so they authorized this. They said, go do this. This is what we're offering. This is what we're going to do. And then when everybody got wind of it, particularly the survivors and family members of 9/11 victims, got wind of all this, they're like, are you out of your freaking mind? What the hell are you doing? And it was a big uproar. And is she the one that just got relieved of? Okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of assumed it was going to be like one of those stories that she got full authorization. And then when it went south and people got mad, you know, they're like, you're out. Bye. She's the one. She did it. She kind of did it.
Yeah. I don't think that's what happened. I think so. Just so everybody understands, the plea deal is actually all it was doing was taking the death penalty off the table.
Right.
And I think the exchange
and it's for where's my image?
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and the whole nine. Yeah, these assholes. Sorry.
Yeah, scumbags. No. You call it like you see it. I agree. We all agree.
Yeah. So it took the death penalty off the table for the three of them, and I believe not all the terms and conditions were public as to what the exchange was. So it was, you know, take the death penalty off the table. I think it was an admission of guilt, which would speed this, which would close this thing out.
Right.
Which I think was the intent, to like end this, like close the chapter.
Sure.
But do that by taking the death penalty off the table. I think that was part of the exchange. And you know, like you said, it progressed exactly like you said. It hit the news. The survivors found out about it. They livid.
Yeah.
You know, and the reaction was not what anybody anticipated
Right.
it to be. And then it went right back to Secretary Austin, who said, yeah, no, she's, you know, I'm pulling this, I'm pulling the plea deal, I'm taking it off the table. No longer, I'm the only one who can make these types of decisions. I'm pulling all authority back to myself. And essentially, yes, Brigadier General retired Susan Escalier got pulled right off of all of this. I don't know if she's been completely removed from the case, or if she's been, you know, taken a back seat, or if now she, you know, can't, you know, talk to these guys without authorization, whatever. I don't know if they just put a leash on her or what, but there were moves being made. And I think I will never say it was done in good faith, because I don't think that is good faith, but I think the intent was, let's end this, right? We've had this guy in custody for 20 years, you know, nothing's moving forward. Let's do something with this. But here's the thing that it continues to make me chuckle. These pieces of human filth, who sacrificed, you know, the hijackers, and had spent years as terrorist leaders sacrificing other people.
Yeah.
Right? Directing suicide operations, suicide bombs, you know, all terrorist fighters, all kinds of stuff. When the death penalty is on the table for them, they're like, "Oh,
no.
I'm not buying off on that.
Yeah.
I'll fight this. I'm not, you're not doing that to me."
Yeah. How about that? Right.
Right.
What happened to, you know,
yeah. Faith, you know, in their faith, you know, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
They're
I thought you were willing to die for your convictions and your belief, and guess not. Not so much.
Many years ago, 2002, I got a little talking to as young Captain Clay Novak in Afghanistan. I gave an interview to it was either CNN or Headline News, and I said exactly that 22 years ago. I said, listen, you know, we just came back from an operation. We've been running around out there begging the Taliban to come screw with us. Come get in a fight with us. Please do. And you know what? They talk a big game, but when it comes down to, you know, really putting their word, you know, their money where their mouth is, they're all a bunch of cowards.
Yep.
And you know,
Captain got a little talking to for that one.
Got a little talking to after that, but I stand by.
Yeah, I was going to say, so worth it, Clay. So worth it.
The low hanging fruit, unfortunately, you know, for many years is by the leadership of these terrorist organizations. They've been lied to. They've been exploited. They've been sacrificed for a cause that, truthfully, their leadership doesn't even believe in.
Right. And that should be so clear to them. Like, I mean, I would hope that they're getting that message, that they're seeing that message, like, you know, that they're thinking about it. Like, wait a minute, hang on. Nah. They're trained basically from birth, right? To have this mentality, this mindset.
Yeah, it's right there. KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, you know, those other two idiots. It's all about self-preservation. They'll sit in prison for the rest of their lives. Totally fine with it. But that, you know, when it comes to the death penalty, they're not buying off on it. So I mean, and it's an embarrassment.
Yeah. And I think the last that I heard, the plea deal now is off the table, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was like 48 within 48 hours off the table. Like, no. Never mind.
I don't even think they got a chance to sign it.
No.
Like, that hit the news so quick. And Secretary Austin grabbed that and was like, oh, hell no. You know, and he pulled it back. So yes, it's off the table. They're going to proceed forward with the death penalty still on the table for those three guys. Yeah. As they should. They should never sacrifice. And oh, by the way, check your Congress, your members of Congress, people, because Dick Durbin from my home state of Illinois said, well, because Illinois got rid of the death penalty. So those non-death penalty states, check your congressman, because he was in full support. He was in full support of that plea deal.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't believe in the death penalty. Well, Dick Durbin, you know what? There's families of about 3,000 Americans who would love to
talk to you. Yeah.
They'd like to say two words to you, and they're not "let's dance."
Yeah, definitely not that. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's pretty wild. We have, how are we? Oh my gosh, we can make this one topic.
This is very simple.
This one's very simple, very straightforward. It's, you know, this again, surprise. So this whole thing, I mean, honestly, it's, you know, we're at the point where, like, shocking, no, surprising, no, disgusting and absurd and just a head shaker. Absolutely. So, you know, I mean, we've been hearing about this obviously for it feels like
weeks.
Right.
Weeks.
I'm right. I'm not crazy. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm just exaggerating how long this has been going on. But so it started with, do I have the right one here? Yeah, it started with these two boxers right here. I don't think I have to explain which one might be which in this conversation, right? I feel like everybody can figure this out. So the controversy is, of course, that one of those two boxers was not a biological female, and all kinds of things have been floating around in the atmosphere that, it started with that she's transgender, and then that was supposedly debunked and came out that she's not transgender, but she does have XY chromosome. She wasn't allowed to fight in a previous match, non-Olympic related, because of that, because she tested for like high levels of testosterone. Then I think that was argued that, well, that's not quite. Anyhow, the boxer on the right. I'm like, I don't know my left from my right.
In the blue.
The one in the blue. Thank you. She, after, what was it, 45 seconds?
Yeah, 46 seconds. Yeah.
46 seconds. I stopped the fight. I can't do it. She said she has never in her life been hit so hard. She literally feared for her life in that ring, which is horrifying. And yes, we know somebody will say, well, they're like hitting each other in the head. It is pretty dangerous. Yeah, no, duh. We all know it's pretty dangerous. This is a whole different level of dangerousness and inappropriateness. So here's what I'm going to say on that whole thing. Whether this is an actual biological female that has male, I don't even know what. How do you even explain this? This person has an unfair advantage over her opponents. I'm going to keep going with her. We're going to go with her. I don't really know. Do you know? I don't know. Like, do you know any more?
I have an opinion.
I kind of have an opinion.
Keep going, and then I'll chime in with my opinion.
Okay. All right. So the one thing that is very, very clear, that is the whole physicality that we're comparing here. There's some very obvious differences between these two fighters, right? There is the absolute fact that this person was not allowed to fight prior against women. For whatever reason, the Olympics were like, no, we're cool with that. It's all good. And here we are. Now, there's another fighter. By the way, that fighter basically beat everyone that they fought. Hang on, we do this every time with the darn banners. There we go. This one is from Taiwan. Yes, if I can read right here. Also failed the gender test. And that is the thing here. They failed a gender test. I feel like that only can mean one thing. They failed a gender test. All that it means. So they are fighting against the wrong gender. And what a surprise, these two fighters end up fighting each other. So they eliminated every biological female in the sport, biological females who trained for, probably all of their adult lives for this, or at least a very good portion, got their dreams squashed in a women's sport by men. Or, I'm sorry, by people who are probably men, or maybe men, or we'll never know. Will we ever know? I'm so sad for them. I'm so sad for those women. I really am. It was devastating to see Angela Carini, I believe is her name.
Italian.
Yeah, just in tears, just absolutely wrecked. Awful. Give me your thoughts, because I really stumbled through that.
Guys. They're guys. Those, I'm not messing around with it. I'm tired of the bull. They're guys, right? And everybody can say that the IBA, right, who banned them before, who's a boxing governing body, banned them. They can say they're corrupt, and I will tell you, boxing historically is one of the most corrupt sports there is, but because of money, it's corrupt, right?
Yeah.
But the IBA banned these two competitors, right? And again, it's not a coincidence that those two competitors banned by the IBA are the ones who ended up fighting for the gold medal. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
But listen, there's a lot of people who say, well, the IBA is in the pocket of Russia, and the IBA is corrupt, and this, blah, 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 blah. So is the IOC. Okay. The IOC is a corrupt organization, right? There have been plenty of controversies in the IOC. There's plenty of controversies in every governing body of every sport in every part of the world. So don't dismiss the IBA because there's been controversy. All right. Because you'd have to throw the Olympics out the window as a whole.
Sure.
By the way, talk to the triathlon team who are all sick after swimming in the Seine River because it's filled with human feces. Regardless, those two guys, they're dudes. Both of those, they're guys. Those two boxers, guys, they had an unfair advantage. Period. Right.
Yep.
And it's not a coincidence they ended up in the gold medal round. And the Olympics is a sham. They have lost. They have gone woke. I hate using that word, but in this case, this Olympics more so than anything else is woke. And if you need another example of how woke and screwed up this Olympics is, check out the male volleyball player who is a convicted child rapist.
Yes,
who
that's
has been allowed to compete.
Yeah,
because everybody's like, he's okay now. No, he's not.
No, he's not.
Because if you go back, the guy served, I think, 13 total months, right?
Yeah.
For having sex with a 13 or a 14-year-old when he was 20. Like, that's not okay. I don't care.
Not okay.
And
he has no supervision, no restrictions. He's in with everybody else. Yeah. Mixed in with everybody else.
18.
Yes, exactly.
No,
what an absolute disgrace. I'll only speak for myself. That franchise, whatever you want to call the Olympics, is done. It's done. It's going to continue, of course. But they have kind of gone the way of the NFL.
It's coming here. It's coming here.
Yeah. Great. Yep. No thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, in a presidential election year, it's coming here in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, that
shouldn't be any problems at all.
No. I'm sure it's going to go great. I'm sure it's going to go awesome. It'll be perfect.
No, yeah.
Well, listen, if it's when's that one gonna? What is it? Is every 4 or 8 years?
Yeah, 2028.
So 2028. Okay. All right. Well, if either Vance, maybe Trump, maybe a little bit, if they have any say in it, it'll be huge. It'll be the best Olympics you'll ever see.
Yeah.
So there is some hope for it if it comes here under those circumstances. So I won't write it off completely, but right now, again, and I said it last week. We said it last week. I just feel so bad for the athletes. I feel so bad for the athletes. What a stain on incredible accomplishments. Very sad.
Awful.
Very sad.
Awful.
But you listen, the news cycle never ends. We never get bored. We never not have something to share with you guys. And we like to remind you every time that we record on Tuesdays, you watch the show with us on Thursdays, and we're well aware that anything could happen over the next 2 days. So if we're not talking about it, you know why. And we'll chat with you about it in the comments and all that good stuff. But we just love you guys to pieces, and we love sharing our Thursday evenings with you. And so Clay, you want to send them off with some wise words?
Hey, everybody, listen, Elsa and I, like everybody else, we're taking not together. We're taking vacation. End of summer's busy. And we're going to take the next 2 weeks off. Okay. So you got us for this week, and then we're going to come back to recap the DNC. So for the next 2 weeks, don't forget about us. We're still around. But we're going to take the next couple of weeks off, and then we will be back the last week of August, and we will recap the DNC, and Elsa's going to put her Kamala wig on, and it's going to be off the hook. We're going to have a good time. But epic. Yes. But as always, thanks for tuning in. This was a fun show, a lot going on, tons to talk about. And as always for me, keep moving, keep.
Take care, guys.